Security! Get her out! She was never on the list. The words hit harder than the red wine that exploded across her white silk dress. The music stopped mid-note. Gasps ripped through the ballroom. Flashes burst like lightning. Laughter followed like thunder. Phones shot up instantly. Screens glowing. Captions rolling. This was entertainment now. This was content. At the center, the black woman in white did not move. Wine dripped down the fabric, red stains blooming like wounds. But she stood still. Her chin lifted a fraction, her eyes locked forward. Not at the woman who threw the wine, not at the guard closing in, but beyond them, through them. Her silence screamed louder than their insults. The matriarch's laugh cut sharp. Eleanor Vancroft, silver hair lacquered into a crown, diamonds clinging to her neck. She dangled her empty glass, mocking, gloating. You thought you belonged here. The words slithered across marble floors, caught by every microphone, carried by every phone. The crowd howled again. Not everyone, but enough. Men in tuxedos clapped. Women in sequins whispered behind jeweled hands. One voice called out, "Guess they opened the doors tonight." The cruelty spread, layer after layer, piling on. Phones caught it all. Hashtags were born in real time. She doesn't belong. Wrong list. Wrong room. The ballroom wasn't elegance anymore. It was an arena. And she was the spectacle. Still, she did not break. She reached for the linen napkin, blotted one streak of wine, placed the cloth back. Deliberate calm, more powerful than any outburst. The room tightened. Eyes pinned to her stillness. Breath held. For a second, even the laughter faltered. A guard shifted near the door. Another pressed his earpiece, waiting, unsure. The matriarch snapped again. "Out! Now!" But her voice, it didn't sound as certain this time. Somewhere near the back, a young photographer raised her camera, hands trembling, but compelled to click. The flash popped. The frame froze, dignity in ruins, but also power in patience. That image already on its way to group chats, to newsrooms, to the world. The black woman in white lifted her phone, pressed it to her ear. Her voice calm, low, unshaken. Protocol 1. 2 words. Soft as silk, sharp as steel. They sliced through the silence. The laughter stumbled. The guard hesitated. And for the first time, the room began to doubt. The intro ends here. The humiliation staged. The storm approaching. Her name not yet spoken. Her power not yet revealed. But every chandelier trembled, every phone shook, and every heart waited for what she would do next. Before we go deeper, I want to hear from you. Have you ever witnessed a moment where someone's dignity was stripped in public? Drop your city, your state, your country in the comments right now. Because stories like this, they don't just belong to one ballroom, they belong to all of us. The ballroom hadn't recovered. The silence had weight. But cruelty never rests long. A guard stepped forward. Tall, broad shoulders, suit stretched tight across muscle. His earpiece buzzed, his jaw clenched. He moved closer. Another followed. 2 shadows cutting across the marble floor. Their shoes echoed, heavy against the sudden quiet. The matriarch snapped her fingers, like a conductor summoning the next note. "Take her outside, now!" The command cracked. Cold, public, absolute. The crowd shifted, tables scraping against polished stone. Chairs creaked, eyes followed the guards. Phones tilted higher, every angle captured, every second streamed. The black woman in white still did not move. Wine soaking into silk, stains spreading slow, like time refusing to pass. Her hands stayed at her sides, her chin steady, her silence a refusal, carved in stone. The guards hesitated. One looked at the matriarch, the other at the host, unsure where power truly sat. But orders were orders, and orders had been given. They closed in, step by step, the crowd leaning closer. The laughter returned, sharper now, eager, hungry. One man muttered, "Guess they're finally cleaning up." A woman in sequins laughed. "Should have never let her through the door." Another voice, low and cruel, "Can't buy class at Macy's? The cruelty multiplied, every insult layered on the last. Phones lit brighter. Live stream comments pouring in. This is crazy. She's done. Wrong place, wrong time. Some comments harsher, some pretending to joke, but all feeding the spectacle. The ballroom had become a stage, and the crowd was both actor and audience. The guard reached her shoulder. His hand hovered, close enough to touch, close enough to remove her. The matriarch leaned back, satisfied, smug. She whispered to the man beside her, "Never on the list. Never will be." The words carried, picked up by microphones, amplified through phones, echoed in captions. The woman in white turned her head, just enough. Her gaze slid to the guard's hand. Not fear, not panic, something deeper. The guard froze, as if her eyes alone carved stone around his feet. The young photographer raised her camera again. Snap. Another frame captured. The crowd leaned closer, hungry for collapse, hungry for spectacle. But still, she did not move. A voice cut through, this time from the back. "Is this really happening in front of everyone?" It wasn't loud, but it was clear. Heads turned, eyes searched, but the speaker stayed hidden. The matriarch ignored it, her laugh sharper now, louder. "Remove her! She has no place here!" The guard's hand finally touched her arm. Light, tentative, like he already doubted himself. The crowd roared approval. Phones zoomed in, comments flooded. "This is wild. Get her out. She's finished." The woman in white did not resist, did not plead, did not beg. Her eyes lifted instead, to the chandelier above, to the golden light raining down. A queen, even when surrounded, even when cornered. Her silence louder than their mockery. The guards tried again, hands firmer this time, pressure against silk, but she moved first. One step forward, slow, controlled. The crowd gasped, not because she resisted, but because she chose. Her decision, not theirs. Her timing, not theirs. The matriarch slammed her glass down. Crystals rattled across the table. "Enough, take her out." The command cracked again, but the echo felt weaker. The crowd sensed it too. A ripple of doubt shivered through the room. Still, the insults rained down. Imposter? Trash. Never belonged. Each word sharper, each voice bolder. A man shouted, "Show her the door!" Another laughed, "Should have stayed in her lane." The cruelty felt endless, like a chorus with no melody. Through it all, she stayed silent. Her stillness drew every eye, every phone. Not the guards, not the matriarch. Her, the woman in white. The stain spreading, the silence deepening. The ballroom was boiling, cameras burning bright, comments flying fast. But something else hovered, unspoken, unseen. The shift was coming, the tide preparing to turn. Not yet, not revealed. But the silence of one woman was beginning to outweigh the noise of hundreds. She glanced once more at the guard's hand, then back at the crowd. Her eyes swept across, every sneer, every laugh, every lens. The room stiffened, as if they realized they were not watching her. She was watching them. The matriarch laughed again, too loud, too forced. "Get her out now." But the order? It sounded brittle, fragile. Like glass ready to shatter. The woman in white took another step forward. The guards hesitated again. Their hands loosened. The crowd leaned closer, phones tilted higher. The spectacle was no longer humiliation. It was suspense, the audience waiting, but not sure what for. The young photographer snapped again. Click, flash, another moment frozen, another piece of history slipping quietly into evidence. The ballroom waited, breathless, hungry, restless. The storm had not yet broken, but everyone felt it. The humiliation staged, the cruelty piled high, and yet the woman in white still stood unbroken. This was not the end. This was only pressure, the squeeze before the release. The storm was coming, the reversal near, and every person in that ballroom would soon realize they were not the audience, they were the judged. The ballroom was holding its breath. The cruelty had peaked. The guards had touched her arm, but then, two words dropped like stones. Protocol 1, soft, calm, Almost casual, but not casual at all. The crowd barely understood. Most thought it meaningless, just words, just a whisper. The matriarch smirked. She's stalling. Pathetic. But others in that ballroom felt the shift. A hedge fund titan lowered his glass, brows furrowed. A senator's aide checked his phone, screen glowing brighter than before. The air shifted, unseen currents stirring. The woman in white lowered her phone, her hand steady, her face unbroken. She looked across the room. One sweeping gaze. Not pleading, not asking, owning. Her silence became a question mark for everyone watching. What had she just set in motion? The guard stepped back slightly. Not much, but enough. Their hesitation carried through the crowd. This was not weakness. This was not fear. It was calculation. The matriarch hissed again. Do your job. But even her voice cracked. A phone buzzed. Then another. And another. Small vibrations at first. Pocket to pocket. Table to table. Then screens lit up. Dozens. Hundreds. Notifications flooding the room. Emails, messages, alerts. The first whisper came. Oh my God, check your phones! A ripple spread. Chairs shifted. Drinks lowered. Eyes darted down to glowing screens. And then the murmurs began. One man muttered, This can't be real. Another gasped. Look at this. She's connected. A woman's voice rose. She's Apex. She's Apex Stratus. The name carried, like a spark to dry leaves. Apex Stratus. A giant. A player worth billions. The partner in the $5 billion merger. The matriarch's smile faltered. For the first time. Her eyes flicked sideways. Her son leaned in, whispering sharp. Mom, she's the deal. The words hit harder than any insult ever could. The room shifted. Balance tilting, cruelty thinning into doubt. The black woman in white took one step forward. Not fast, not loud, but deliberate. She did not speak. She did not need to. Every phone spoke for her. Every screen screamed louder than any voice in the room. The guards dropped their hands, not with apology, not with shame, but with instinct. Something told them. This was no longer their fight. The young photographer clicked again. This time, the frame captured power. Not humiliation. Wine stains still spread, but they no longer looked like wounds. They looked like warning signs. Blood red. Royal red. The murmurs grew louder, the crowd buzzing. Is she the CEO? No way. She runs Apex? She's the list. The matriarch slammed her hand down. Stop this nonsense. She doesn't belong. But her words were no longer truth. They were denial. The woman in white lifted her gaze to the chandelier again. Light fractured across crystal, like a crown above her head. Her stillness spoke. Her silence carried weight. This was no longer spectacle. This was revelation. The senator's aide whispered, We need to leave. Right now. A banker pulled out his phone, dialing fast, sweat on his forehead. An heiress dropped her glass. Shards across marble, her face pale. The shift had happened. The tide had turned. She had not yelled. She had not begged. She had not resisted. She had whispered. 2 words, and the room unraveled. The matriarch tried again. Don't believe this. It's a trick. But her voice had lost its echo. No one laughed with her. No one clapped. No one joined in. Her empire of cruelty was cracking in real time. The young photographer snapped again. Another frame frozen. A moment history would remember. The caption, writing itself. From target to titan, the woman in white finally moved her lips. Not to shout. Not to argue. Just one sentence. Soft, measured. You'll regret tonight. The words landed cold. Sharper than any glass. The ballroom shifted again. Some stood. Some sat frozen. Some lowered their phones. But every eye was locked on her. No longer the outsider, no longer the spectacle, now the axis, the center. The guard stepped back completely. The crowd split subtly. A space opening in the marble floor. Not forced, not planned, but natural, inevitable. Like the sea pulling back before a wave crashes. The matriarch's diamonds shook. Her fingers clenched the glass, but her power was draining into the silence. The silence she had mocked, now swallowing her whole. Phones still buzzed. Screens still glowed. Every alert the same. Apex Stratus confirmed. CEO confirmed. Protocol 1 activated. The meaning clear. This was no imposter. This was the owner. The ballroom felt different now. Not cruel, not mocking, but cautious, watching their own reflection in the eyes of one woman. Realizing they had laughed at the hand that signed their checks, the woman in white took another step. Wine stains glowing under crystal light, her silence heavier than gold. The foreshadow complete. The storm approaching, and every person knew it. The ballroom was buzzing, phones lit, whispers spreading. But in her silence, another story stirred. Not tonight, not this chandelier, not this glass. A memory surfaced. Unwanted, unshakable. Years earlier. A different room. A different list. She was younger then. No silk gown, no billion-dollar deal. Just ambition. And a borrowed blazer. She had studied for years, worked 2 jobs, saved every cent. Her invitation was earned, or so she thought. The lobby of that hotel. Cold marble. Polished brass elevators. She approached the desk, ticket in hand, her name written clear. The attendant looked once, then twice, frown deepening, eyes scanning the list. "I'm sorry your name isn't here." Her heart raced. "Check again. It has to be." But the man shook his head. "Not on the list. You can't go in." Behind her, laughter bubbled. A group in tailored suits, young heirs and heiresses. They glanced her way. One whispered too loud, "Wrong place, wrong crowd." Her cheeks burned, not from shame, from fury. But fury had no seat at that table. She turned, walked out. The doors shut behind her. Heavy, final. Outside, she sat on the curb. Taxi lights passing, city noise buzzing. She pulled her phone, opened her notes, typed just one line, one promise. "If I'm not on the list, I'll own the list." Her fingers shook, but the words steadied her. A vow, unbreakable. Years passed. She built piece by piece. Night shifts, boardrooms, contracts stacked like bricks. While others mocked, she worked. While doors closed, she carved windows. Every insult, every laugh, fuel for the fire. Flash forward. Back to the ballroom. The matriarch's laughter echoed again. But the sound felt weaker, because in her silence tonight lived every insult from the past, every curb she sat on, every door slammed shut. The young photographer's flash popped. Click. Another frame. She blinked and saw not just a woman in a stained dress. She saw the girl outside that hotel, the girl with no list, the girl who swore to own it. And here she was, living the vow. The matriarch sneered. "She's nobody. Always was, always will be." But the words no longer carried weight, because the phones said otherwise, because the truth was already spilling across screens. The woman in white lifted her chin higher. Her silence. Now a bridge, from past to present, from humiliation to power. And the crowd felt it, even if they didn't admit it. A senator whispered, "I remember her, years ago. She tried to get in." His aide nodded. Not just tried. She never stopped. The whispers swirled, truths rising, histories remembered. Her vow echoed in the room. "If I'm not on the list, I'll own the list." Not spoken tonight, but felt, known. Every phone buzzing carried that vow forward. The matriarch gripped her diamonds, her fingers white with strain. She saw it too. The past, the rise, the inevitability, and it terrified her. The guards no longer moved. Their hands dropped, their eyes lowered. Not fear of her, respect of what she represented. The curb outside that hotel, the vow typed at midnight, the empire built from nothing. All standing here now, in one silent woman. The crowd shifted again, from laughter to murmurs, from mockery to memory, because many in that room knew that feeling. Doors closed, names denied, lists weaponized. And for the first time tonight, they felt it with her, not against her. The woman in white did not speak yet, but her silence told the story, a flashback written in scars, a vow carried forward. Her stillness said it all. "You laughed before. You mocked before. But I never stopped. And tonight, You are watching the result. The young photographer lowered her camera, eyes wide, heart pounding. She wasn't just capturing a story. She was capturing a prophecy fulfilled, the vow of a girl, now the reality of a CEO. The ballroom leaned forward. No one sure what came next, but everyone certain of one thing. She wasn't just surviving. She was rewriting history, not with speeches, not with rage, but with silence that thundered. Her eyes swept the chandeliers again. Light fractured across crystal. Her crown, her reminder. She had been locked out once, but never again. The list was hers. The room was hers. And soon even her enemies would know it. The vow still lingered. Unspoken, but alive. The ballroom shifted. Whispers turned to murmurs. Murmurs turned to noise. And then, the cruelty came back. Louder. Harsher. One voice called out, "She's nothing, not really." Another joined in. "She doesn't deserve this room." Laughter rose again, forced, ugly, like children desperate to keep control of a game. Phones lit brighter, live streams rolling non-stop. Comments scrolled fast. "She's finished. Fake power. She's out of her league." Each comment sharpened the sting. The cruelty wasn't whispers now. It was broadcast, shared, amplified. A young heir leaned back, phone angled perfectly. He sneered into the lens. "This is how you deal with imposters." His friends laughed. They clinked glasses, cameras flashing bright. Another voice shouted, "Show her the door!" The chant caught. A few echoed, then more, then louder. "Out, out, out!" The matriarch smiled again, her confidence returning. She raised her glass, mock toast, to keeping the list clean. The crowd cheered, or at least pretended to, their fear mixed with cruelty, their loyalty mixed with habit. They laughed because everyone else laughed. They mocked because silence felt unsafe. The woman in white still stood silent, her eyes steady, her chin high. She blotted another streak of wine, slow, deliberate. A small gesture, but heavier than shouts. The photographer clicked again. Flash. Another image captured. Not humiliation, but defiance, but endurance. Every frame a different story than the one the crowd told. Live stream captions scrolled faster. "Who is she? Why isn't she leaving? Why so calm?" Confusion mixing with cruelty. Curiosity mixing with malice. The digital world watching in real time. The matriarch's daughter pulled out her phone. She grinned, tilted the camera. This is what happens when people try to sneak in. Her friends laughed louder. Applause followed. The video spread instantly, across feeds, across states. Within seconds, thousands were watching, tens of thousands. The chant grew louder. "Out, out, out!" The crowd moved with it, tables shaking, glasses tipping. Some voices cracked. But they shouted anyway. Fear, feeding cruelty. The guards looked uncertain again, eyes flicking to each other, hands half raised. But still, they held back. Because even as the crowd mocked, the phones still buzzed, the screens still lit. Truth, buzzing in their pockets. Revelation rising beneath the noise. The woman in white closed her eyes once. Not to hide, but to breathe. One deep inhale, one steady exhale. Like a runner before the final lap. Like a fighter before the last round. The matriarch slammed the table. "Enough! End this!" Her voice shook slightly, her hand trembling, but her diamonds still glittered. The chant carried on, drowning her command. Phones captured every angle, every sneer, every cruel smile, but also every still frame of her silence, every second of her calm. Two narratives fighting in real time, one cruel, one powerful. The young photographer lowered her camera briefly. She whispered to herself, "They'll regret this." She knew what her frames held, not weakness, not collapse, but history, but revelation. The woman in white opened her eyes again, her gaze sweeping slowly, each chant quieting as her eyes passed. "Out! Out! Out!" Weaker now, less certain. Like children, caught in their own lie, the matriarch hissed again. "You will never belong here." But even her voice sounded smaller, because the room was beginning to realize they weren't mocking a guest. They were mocking their host. Still, the cruelty piled high. Comments scrolling fast, phones flashing nonstop, every insult a brick, every laugh a weight. But she stood unmoved, and in her stillness, the cracks began to show. Not in her, in them. The ballroom was reaching its peak, the ugliness on full display. This was the height of humiliation, the summit of cruelty. But storms do not stay silent forever, and this storm was almost ready to break. The chant was fading, not gone, but weaker. The matriarch's hand shook, her glass nearly slipped, and then the microphone cracked. Feedback hissed across crystal walls. The MC stepped forward, smile painted wide, suit tailored sharp. He raised his hand. The crowd hushed. Well, what a moment. His voice oozed charm, but the edges cut. He paced slowly, microphone in hand, shoes echoing on marble. We invite guests, we honor names, we celebrate success. He turned, eyes landing on her. But sometimes a mistake is made. The crowd laughed, nervous at first, then louder. The woman in white stood still, wine stains glowing red, silence wrapping around her. The MC tilted his head. Security is patient, but patience runs thin. The crowd clapped, a wave of cruel applause. The matriarch smirked again, her confidence returning. The MC leaned closer, voice dripping with theater. I checked twice. Her name is not here. He lifted a gold envelope, thick, polished. This is the real list. The crowd leaned forward, eyes hungry, phones ready. He opened it slowly, pulled out a card, names printed clear, lines in bold ink. He held it high, shaking it like proof. The matriarch clapped. Read it. Read every name. The crowd cheered. Phones zoomed closer. The MC smiled wide. Shall I line by line? He scanned the first names, chose the loudest, the wealthiest, the safest. Each name read aloud, each name greeted with cheers. Applause thundered. He paused, eyes sliding back to her. But hers, not here. The crowd erupted, cheers mixed with jeers. The chant began again. Out, out, out. The woman in white breathed slow, her eyes locked on the envelope. Not on the MC, not on the matriarch, on the envelope, because she knew that list was never theirs. The photographer snapped again, flash exploding in the tension. The MC frowned briefly, but covered it fast. Take your pictures. History is being made. He bowed slightly, mocking, performing. The air thickened, applause clashed with jeers, cruelty dressed as comedy. Every second pushing pressure higher. The room felt like a boiling kettle, lid rattling. One more push, and it would blow. The woman in white did not move. Her silence stretched thin, so thin it could slice glass. The MC chuckled. Any last words before security helps you out? The crowd roared, phones tilted closer, voices screaming approval. The matriarch raised her glass again. Mock toast. To close doors and open eyes. Laughter spread, ugly, echoing. But behind the noise, phones still buzzed. Notifications stacking. Some guests glanced down. Brows furrowed, eyes narrowing, but they stayed quiet. For now, the MC lifted the mic again, his voice booming. This is a gala, a celebration, not a protest, not a mistake. His words wrapped the crowd, pushed them harder, pulled them louder. The woman in white shifted her weight once, barely, but the room felt it. The crowd's chant faltered, just a crack, but real. The MC snapped quick. Don't stop now, keep it going. The chant rose again, forcing itself louder, masking its own weakness. The chandeliers shook slightly, not from sound, from tension. The pressure could not rise forever. The storm was close. The young photographer whispered, Hold on, just hold on, because she knew. This silence was not surrender. It was the pause before thunder. The MC raised his card again. Her name is not here, and it never will be. The matriarch clapped wildly, forcing the crowd to follow. Applause thundered, but cracks were showing. Too loud, too desperate. The woman in white lifted her eyes, past the MC, past the matriarch, to the glowing screens, because those screens were already rewriting the story, and soon no chant could silence it. The MC still smiled, his card shaking slightly. Her name is not here. It never was. Applause burst again. Too loud, too hollow. The chant followed. Out, out, out. But the air shifted. Something unseen. Something waiting. Above the ballroom, screens flickered. Huge LED panels built for spectacle. At first static. A glitch of light. Guests frowned. A ripple of confusion. The MC kept talking. Security, do your job. But his words fell under the hum. The screens buzzing louder, and then it appeared. A logo. White against black. Clean. Bold. Unmistakable. Apex Stratus. Letters stretched across the ballroom. Fortune 500, $5 billion power. Gasps tore through the crowd. Phones tilted instantly, every lens recording. The MC froze mid-sentence. The matriarch's glass slipped, shattered against marble. The sound cracked like a gunshot. The logo pulsed, growing brighter, sharper. Behind it, words scrolled. Official, corporate, undeniable. Protocol 1 activated. CEO present. The ballroom erupted. No longer laughter, no longer jeers. A storm of whispers, of shock, of disbelief. She's the CEO. She's Apex. Oh my God, the matriarch stammered. This is a trick. Her voice cracked. Her diamonds rattled. She looked at the MC. He looked at the floor. Neither could stop the screens. Neither could deny the truth. The guards dropped back, hands lowered completely, eyes wide, breath shallow. Because the list, the one the MC waved, meant nothing now. The only list that mattered was glowing above their heads. The woman in white finally moved. One step forward, deliberate, calm. The stains on her dress still visible, but irrelevant now. The room saw something else. Power, authority, ownership. The young photographer gasped, her camera shaking. She snapped anyway, frame after frame. Because history was no longer humiliation. It was revelation. The logo rotated once more, then froze. A single line appeared. Cold. Simple. Apex Stratus controls tonight's list. The crowd exploded again, not in laughter, not in cruelty. In panic. In awe. Guests grabbed their phones, refreshing emails, checking contracts. A banker muttered. We're finished. A senator whispered. This changes everything. The tide had turned. Not slowly, not gently, but violently, irrevocably. The MC tried once more. Don't believe it. It's staged. But no one listened. Not anymore. Because the screens were louder than any voice. Because the logo carried more weight than applause. The matriarch's son leaned in, whispering harsh. Mom, it's real! Her face drained pale. Her glass hand trembling. For the first time, the crowd pitied her. Not the woman in white. Her. The matriarch. The woman in white lifted her chin higher. Her silence, now louder than ever. She had not spoken. She had not begged. She had not argued. But the ballroom knew. The list was hers. The power was hers. Phones buzzed again. Notifications pouring in. A headline flashed. Apex Stratus CEO spotted at Gala. Protocol 1 confirmed. Screenshots flew across states, across the country. The humiliation staged had just flipped. The spectacle inverted. The chant died completely. No one dared continue. The crowd stood frozen, caught between shame and shock. Every eye locked on her. No longer a target, now the axis, the center. The chandeliers sparkled harder, light, catching crystal. She looked up once more, not at them, through them, as if she had always known, always waited. And tonight, the world finally caught up. The photographer lowered her camera, tears stinging her eyes. She whispered, She owns the list. Not a caption, not a headline, a truth, simple, final. The matriarch tried again. She doesn't belong, but the words sounded broken, because the screens kept glowing, kept screaming the opposite. The woman in white stepped forward again. Her silence said it all. I belong. I always did. The applause faded. Silence returned. But this time it was not mockery. It was respect. The CEO stood still, the logo glowing above. Her eyes swept slowly, taking in every face, every phone, every whisper. She raised her hand again, calm, steady, and spoke. "You laughed at me tonight, but business does not laugh." Her voice sharpened. "Business remembers." Phones buzzed instantly, more alerts pouring in, screens lighting across the room. A banker gasped. "Oh no, the deal is gone," a senator's aide whispered. "Read this. It's official." Guests fumbled, checking emails, refreshing screens. The CEO continued. Apex Stratus was prepared to close a $5 billion partnership. She paused, letting the number sink in like thunder. "But after tonight, that deal is canceled." The words hit harder than any chant, than any insult. The crowd erupted. Gasps, shouts, chaos. Phones confirmed it instantly. Notifications flashing everywhere. Apex terminates 5B Vancroft deal. Partnership dissolved effective immediately. The matriarch froze, her face pale, her diamonds shaking. She reached for her son. "Tell me this isn't real." But his phone buzzed, his eyes wide, his jaw dropped. "It's real. We just lost everything." The MC stepped back, his envelope worthless, his mic useless. He tried to smile, but no words came. His career unraveling right there on marble. The CEO's voice cut through the panic. "You mocked me. You humiliated me, but you did not ruin me." She paused. "You ruined yourselves." The crowd erupted again, not with cruelty, with shock, with fear. Because partners were leaving, contracts evaporating, wealth dissolving in real time. One man shouted, "My fund is tied to Vancroft." "Aimswall." Another gasped, "My company just froze." The ripple was brutal, public, instant. The humiliation was now theirs. The photographer snapped again, each frame sharper, each moment heavier. From mockery to meltdown, from spectacle to justice. The matriarch tried to stand. Her knees buckled. Her voice cracked. "You can't do this." But the CEO's silence answered louder. More phones buzzed. Headlines stacked fast. Apex CEO cancels 5B deal live. Vancroft fortune crumbles at Gala. The crowd could not escape it. Their feeds were their judge. The CEO lifted her chin again, her eyes calm, her voice clear. "This room will remember tonight." She turned slightly, scanning faces. "Not because you mocked me, but because I ended you." The chandeliers trembled. The marble echoed. Every guest knew the tide had turned, knew the empire had fallen. The applause returned. Not cruel, not mocking, but real. Hands clapping, voices rising. Respect born from fear, born from awe, the young photographer whispered. "They'll write about this forever." She snapped once more, the caption ready. "Power does not beg, it decides." The matriarch sat slumped, her glass gone, her power gone. Around her, former allies stepped back, one by one, turning away. Her empire collapsed in plain sight. The CEO stood tall, unshaken, unbroken. She had taken their mockery, their cruelty, and turned it into justice. Public, final. The room was still shaking, billions erased in seconds, legacies undone in minutes. The matriarch slumped, her diamonds dull, her voice gone. Around her, former allies stepped back, turning away, leaving her alone. The CEO stood silent, the logo glowing above. But now, the storm had passed, and calm returned. She lifted her chin, her voice steady. "I came here tonight not for revenge, not for spectacle, but for truth." The crowd leaned forward, phones lowered slightly, eyes fixed. She gestured to her dress, wine stains blooming red. "You saw this stain and thought it defined me." Her gaze sharpened. "But my worth was never in your hands." The chandeliers gleamed brighter, the silence softer now. She continued, "My story is not unique. Too many doors close before they open. Too many names are crossed off lists before they're written down." She paused. The crowd still. "But every closed door, every denied list, every insult is just fuel." Her voice lifted. "You can turn pain into power," the young photographer whispered. "She's not just speaking to them. She's speaking to us." Her hands shook, but she snapped another photo. The caption clear. From stain to symbol. The CEO raised her hand again. I don't stand here alone. I carry every voice that was told you don't belong. Her tone softened. To anyone listening tonight, in this room, or far beyond it, remember this. You are not the stain. You are the strength. Tears glistened in the crowd. Some lowered their heads, ashamed. Others nodded quietly, moved. The chant was gone. The cruelty silenced. Only truth remained. The CEO stepped back once, her eyes sweeping wide. This room will forget the jokes, but it will never forget tonight. Not because of money, not because of power, but because dignity cannot be canceled. Applause erupted. Not forced, not cruel, real, raw, respectful. It spread row by row, table by table. Even the chandeliers seemed to tremble with it. The matriarch sat frozen, her empire gone, her voice erased. The CEO turned slightly, not gloating, not mocking, simply final. Her silence was the last judgment. The photographer lowered her camera, her voice breaking. They'll write this forever, but we lived it. The CEO glanced once more at the glowing logo, then back to the crowd. Her final words cut through marble. Power is not given, it's claimed, and tonight we reclaimed it. The applause thundered again, a storm of hands, a wave of respect. The crowd no longer mocking, now standing. For her, the music returned, softer now, strings trembling. But the real song was silence filled with awe. The CEO turned, walked steady, past shattered glass, past broken voices, her head high, her steps final. The night forever changed. And before we close this story, I want to leave you with this. Have you ever been told you don't belong? Have you ever felt doors close in your face? Remember her vow. If I'm not on the list, I'll own the list. If this story moved you, hit subscribe right now. Join us, because more stories are coming. Stories of power, stories of justice, stories that belong to us all.